It is May 27, 2015. And I've made 2 video clips so far today. One is sort of a generalized video clip about the government and my opinion of it in the United States. And then the second video clip I made, it has really horrible lighting, and it was in my bedroom. I probably shouldn't have made the video clip there just because the lighting is so bad and it doesn't look very good. Not that it looks much better out here, but and I explained everything is in a packing stage at the moment. But anyway, I had just been thinking for a few minutes. I took a nap and was thinking about some of the things that had happened and realized I should probably mention some things that happened to my mom. And something that I would like to add to that is that in addition to these JCs that I mentioned, there was also a man that I said looked like Jesus. I'm not sure which one it was out of all of them that scared my mom the most, but one of them did. And I think the guy that looked like Jesus, there were 2 of them. One was the guy who's currently a pastor over here again, and he's been off and on pastor in this area, and he's military based, and he also has lived in Seattle near the FBI. And he is pastor of the Coquille Christian Church over in Coquille, Oregon, right now. And then, and I've mentioned him before. And then the other guy is Matt Sheehy. And I didn't realize later when I met Matt that I had known him or met him even earlier in my life. And it was him, from what I remember, unless there was someone else who looked like him, but I'm pretty sure that it was him when I was a younger kid. So there were a couple of guys that I had just kind of commented looked like Jesus. If my mom was scared of someone else, I'm not sure who. There's a Jesus that was connected to my Aunt Lachlan. And there was Dr. Free, who I sometimes called Dr. Seuss, but I called some of the other doctors, like Crane and some of the other ones who had the name JC, also Dr. Seuss, one of them in particular, because it was just a shortened version of the JC Jesus idea, and then it's Dr. Seuss. So, in addition to the FBI rapes, though, I also am pretty sure, I shouldn't say I'm positive, but I think possibly Louis Freeh had something to do with my mom. That was a different man who became FBI director. And basically, from what I saw as a kid, as I've been explaining all of these government gang rapes that have occurred against me, what I saw would look to me like government gang rapes against my mom. And one individual that I believed when I was in high school was raping my mom, I had a feeling about it, was this guy who was trying to date me and had been planning to rape me, and his name is Robin Bechtold. I had a really weird feeling that he was sneaking over to my parents' house and raping my mom. My mom couldn't really say anything about it because I know some of the people that he's connected to, and she wouldn't have been able to say anything about it. And neither would my dad. And he would come over and see me and then ogle my mom. And I just had a really strange feeling about him and that situation. He, the tone of things was very similar to what I noticed with between my mom and my so-called fiance Alvaro Pardo. And when Alvaro Pardo and I were supposedly engaged, basically he was holding me hostage, but I was engaged to him. And he came over to, quote unquote, visit my parents. And the interaction between my parents and Alvaro was very reminiscent with the interaction and the response that I noticed my mom had with Robin Bechtold. And pretty forced. And same with my dad. And the same thing too with just this feeling and knowledge that these men were ogling my mom in a way that indicated to me they thought she was like free bait. Like, you know, and from what I've noticed, there's a huge group of government men that were raping my mom, and had blackmailed my dad and my mom to not be able to say anything about it. He had no one to report it to. You know, it was going all the way up to the people who were becoming the directors of the FBI, and all the women get really bitchy. So basically, you know, you can't get any kind of support from an FBI woman because they act like, you know, the woman's to blame, like it's their fault. And my mom experienced that just as I did. And then I think that this government just thought they'd rape my mom, and then they'd just continue that cycle and they'd rape me. I also noticed my mom being raped by Forrest Tanzer, and then Forrest Tanzer's comment to her was, "You're a whore, and your daughter's going to be a whore just like you." And this is when my mom didn't want to have anything to do with Forrest Tanzer. And then later, I mean, Forrest Tanzer not only raped my mom, he was then involved in pedophilia against me. So there were some men who were literally raping my mom and me at the same time. And the United States government knew all about it, and they were keeping that quiet. They basically had me and my mom like serving, being forced to be sexual slaves to their government assholes, and no possible way to report it. My dad couldn't report it. My dad was actually, from what I could tell, being forced to, they'd stand around and they'd force my dad to rape us. They wanted, these guys, these government people were so obsessed and committing such disgusting crimes against us. They wanted to get something against my dad too. I mean, like, they were already blackmailing him and blackmailing us. But it's like, if they did a few more things, they'd get kind of nervous. So then they'd stand by and they'd want to see him do something like they'd done, so that they could say, "You can't report any of us because we can put you in jail and we're the authorities." So I basically had no one to go to. My mom had no one to turn to. And the government has been kidnapping all of my baby girls, and I'm seeing signs of rape and sexual abuse with all of them. I saw signs of that with all of them. And with my son Oliver, after he was removed from me. And the individuals who are involved in doing this are law enforcement and military and intelligence. And when I was younger, and this is what's been happening. I did try to report things when I was a preteen, and I got blocked from it. I had a whole bunch of people retaliate against me, say I was mentally ill, and they threw me into a mental hospital after saying that I was schizophrenic and I had something wrong with me mentally. And then as a result, the individuals that I was trying to report, they continued with the jobs that they had. They climbed the ladder in law enforcement and government positions. So they basically secured even better positions for themselves and more security and everything. And then we got raped more. In the meantime, while they got away with that by discrediting me, they used that to then rape my mom more, rape my kids, and to rape me and torture me. And they carried out several additional rapes with by people who I had tried to report and whose kids had not yet raped us, but they, I guess, wanted to have their kids next rape us. So basically, I'd report George and Janet Bechtold, and the government covered everything up for them. So they sat on it, trained their kid Robin to be in position to rape us, and then later Robin Bechtold, their son, was raping us. So this government, the United States government, has not just been concealing rape one time. Every single time that they have discredited me and tried to call me crazy and kidnapped my kids, done whatever, tortured me and made excuses for it when I sound like, it couldn't be possible or whatever. Every single time they have used they've used the cover that they got by having someone in position to lie about us, to lie about the victims, and to let all these other men get off free. And it's not just these men. There are a bunch of bitches. Yeah. And they are bitches. They are women who are standing by their man come hell or high water. Their daughters, lovers, girlfriends, and their wives. And these women are nasty. I mean, these women have government positions just like their husbands, and some of them are even worse than their husbands. I mean, some of these women are just like real Jezebels. They want their husbands to humiliate and degrade other women, because then some of these women seriously get off on it just like the guys do. Like, it makes them feel more powerful to have other women degraded. Even if their own husband does it, or their own son does it. It's like they almost accept it as some kind of a point of pride. It's just really bizarre. And so there is a huge problem here. And there is no way that my parents are in any kind of position at all to speak freely or to tell the truth about anything that has happened. They lie because they have to lie, because I've seen what has happened to them, and I have never once seen them free will, testifying. I actually did the couple of times that maybe my mom or someone tried to just barely venture to try to say something to someone. I saw them knocked down hard and like locked up. They take them away, locked up, and drag them off with cops and everything. So here's some more cops that I had reported when I was a preteen that the government was dismissive about and put me into a mental institution over. One of the individuals that I reported was Jason Potter. Well, Jason Potter is now chief of police, or his father is chief of police of the entire Portland Police Department. Okay? He was showing up, Jason Potter and his dad were showing up at my house, Moses Lake, Washington. And they were from Oregon, and it was known by me that, yes, these guys were from Oregon. Well, they were showing up at my house on a number of occasions. They were part of this whole laundering my money that was being derived from my songs, from songwriting deals that they were stealing. They were stealing my songs from me and making money off of it. They were stealing other stuff from my mom and dad. They had my mom and dad working for them, and they had people raping my mom and using my mom in different ways, and they all had covers for it. Well, the Potters came over to my house in Moses Lake, like I said, a number of times. I can think of at least 10 times that they were at my house. specifically. They are very good friends. They were good friends back then with the Bechtolds. They're still good friends with the Bechtolds. Well, Nathan Bechtold, one of the Bechtold sons, he ended up getting a job with the state troopers in Oregon. So he's a cop. Robin's a lawyer, so, you know, he's out there to defend his criminal family. And Jason Potter, I actually got a job through a temporary agency, and I didn't realize it at the time, but Jason Potter was the manager. So when things went sour with Jason, with that manager position or whatever, or that temporary position, I then was kind of wondering, how come I can't get a job anywhere in Portland? And I had a lawyer tell me, you know, you're blacklisted. And I was thinking, well, why would I be blacklisted right now? Well, the last job that I'd been able to get from any kind of a temporary agency in Portland had the chief of police's son, Jason Potter, as one of my supervisors, which I hadn't realized. And then another individual that happened to be working at that workplace, I don't know if this was any effect or not, but it was some girlfriend that was a girlfriend of then, who was then a girlfriend of Josh Rose, Rabbi Emmanuel Rose and Lorraine Rose's son. And they'd had something to do with me too. I had to go over to their house. I personally didn't experience, there was a bad situation there. There was a situation there that was pretty shocking for a whole rabbi kind of a place. It was definitely sexual assault. And it was in the rabbi's bedroom with Lorraine. It was definitely not the worst possible assault that ever occurred to me, but they had my dad doing something to me in their bedroom, and they videotaped it. So, I mean, this was like full-on blackmail at the rabbi's house. And their son, you know, I mean, I'm sure he's somehow clued into it. But, so, you know, so just because his girlfriend worked there, I don't know what that would have meant, you know, or how I would have been more blackmailed or listed from the position there. I don't know if there was someone else there that I didn't really clue into who was probably more significantly influential in a negative way. But I do know that Jason Potter's dad was the chief of police, and I wasn't able to get a job after that. Things were pretty bad. And at the time that I had that job, actually, that was around like the year 2000 or so, or 1999. And I hadn't realized or even put together the fact that this Jason Potter is somebody that I had tried to report as being connected to Amy, a CPS worker, who was then involved in kidnapping one of my baby girls for me through CPS in Coos Bay. And Amy Durbin. She was connected to all of these Portland police people and law enforcement, and to the Bechtolds. And, you know, these are the people that are practicing mind control and, like, holding me hostage and holding my mom hostage, raping us, torturing my dad, and I think, from what I saw, raping my dad as well. And they're all into cloning people, basically stealing from whoever they can, and then really they've actually tried killing people off too. I was personally a target of them, and they did try to kill me. And I tried to report the fact that Jason Potter was connected to this Amy Durbin. You know, there are all these cops, and then they were lying about me just in order to kidnap my baby girls from me, so that they could use them as government property, the way they used me and my mom and my dad and everybody and everyone. So when I made that report, as soon as I tried talking about Jason Potter, all of a sudden, and I mentioned some other individuals like James Cartwright and so on. But when I mentioned Jason Potter, that's pretty much about the point that I got put into a mental institution. Started saying I was crazy. all these things that I was saying couldn't be true. I had also mentioned Alvaro Parda, wanted to get a restraining order against him because I felt that he was significant and the government was going to try to use him to rape me later. And he did. He stalked me out in Washington, D.C., and I didn't recognize him. I didn't know who he was. And he raped me. And then proceeded to say that he wanted to marry me. The only way I could get my kid back is if I did marry him. And I was being held hostage at one point. I couldn't get to a courthouse to contest a certain matter. It's a long story, but what I suspected he would probably do in the future, he did do. And these other individuals, well, Jason Potter, I didn't see him again until I got hired at this temporary position in Portland. And I didn't realize that he was the same guy whose dad was the chief of police. And the fact that his dad was the chief of police is significant because before I got that job where his son was at, I had tried to make a couple of rape reports. Rapes by Josh Gatoff and Robin Bechtold, who know Tom Potter. Yeah. So, very good friends. So here is, this horrible situation where basically Detective Brian Gross was assigned to the case of a sexual assault against me. He did nothing. He also knew me when I was a kid. He basically ran it into the ground, provided a full cover for them, and I was told that the FBI was helping them out with that whole cover. So while they provided this cover for Josh Gatoff and Robin Bechtold, who raped me, and when they had plotted and planned these rapes, I next was then kind of like lured into this temporary position where I was then accused of not doing a good job, and then I got a really bad reference out of it, and I couldn't get a job anywhere in Portland after that. So, it was kind of like they reeled me into a position just to ruin my work history and make it hard for me to get work. And I did have lawyers, actually more than one, like 2 of them, tell me that I was blacklisted. And that was at least nice that someone said that to me, because I guess I knew it, and because it was so impossible for me to get a job, and it shouldn't have been that hard. I mean, I guess I knew that, but I almost needed that validation and of affirmation that, yes, here's a lawyer saying there's been an email that has been circulated to a number of businesses throughout Portland to not hire you. And it was actually not just like rumors that were being said about me. There was a like mass email that went out about me. I guess throughout the entire downtown Portland, all the businesses, they all got contacted and told not to hire me. And I couldn't get hired. It was impossible. I tried. And I went to all the same temporary agencies, went to some new temporary agencies. No one would hire me for anything. I mean, not even sticking like labels on folders or whatever. So it's a really bad situation. And I'm in Coos Bay again. This is, a decade later from the whole blacklisting situation. And as far as I know, Tom Potter's still chief of police over there. If he's not, I'm sure he's had someone else succeed him that's just as bad. And at the time that Jason Potter was there at my house when I was a preteen and trying to report him, I believed that he had something to do with raping my mom. There were a few indications from what my brother said and from a few other individuals that he was actually going over there to get sex out of my mom. And basically it was rape because they were using their influence and their power to force my mom to do things and not to tell. And when I one time told my mom to get out of my house in Portland because we got into an argument and the police came, she was like panicked and paranoid and terrified, and it was a bunch of Portland cops that showed up. Why would my mom be so terrified like that? I mean, like so literally scared and crying. around these cops when she knew that Tom Potter was chief of police. If Tom Potter is such a nice guy, you know, and his son did not rape her, or Tom Potter didn't rape her, then why was my mom in hysterics over these police officers, you know, that showed up? And why were they treating her like kind of like hassler? They were hassling her like heckling, sort of like a group of gangsters. And it looked like the same kinds of guys that used to show up to drop my mom off after she was apparently getting raped and then cut, I think, and then having to pretend like she just cut herself in the bathtub, and that's why she's bleeding all over. So I'm still in the same state of Oregon, and the United States government has pretty much locked down a bunch of police and corrupt federal employees for purposes of raping us, torturing us, and getting everything that they can out of us without anyone knowing about it. Without anyone knowing how truly horrific and concentration camp like these conditions are. And they are kidnapping my baby girl again, another baby girl of mine. Everybody's claiming that, oh, this is the first time that there's been a baby girl. It's a lie. It's the third time. And I'm making this video right now, just tonight, to reiterate the fact of how horrible and dangerous this place has been, and that my parents, it doesn't matter even if someone from the Red Cross, there are Red Cross people who showed up who are like horrible. They work with the CIA, some of these people. Some of the Red Cross people will torture you just like the CIA does. I mean, it depends probably on who you get, but they assist with torture. They'll stand by and say, okay, not too much. That might be a little overdoing it there. Sometimes they'll stand by like monitors. But and it depends on who you get. You know, and they can't tell how bad it is. They're not getting tortured. So the situation is very bad. And the same woman, Amy Durbin, is taking part in kidnapping my baby girl from me again. And this is involving all the same cops going back and forth about it, and all of the same government criminals. And my parents are having to lie about all of it.